from Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson with you. And ahead today during his weekly segment on the grain price trends, K-State's Dan O'Brien takes up several things, including the volume of grain business the U.S. has been doing with Mexico. This brought up as the NAFTA renegotiations continue. Then former Agriculture Today colleague DeLoss Jahnke has a conversation with Kansas FFA member Langvardt. He's currently a finalist for a National FFA officer post. And following up with more from the National FFA Convention, further ahead, Kansas FFA state reporter Riley Sleichter. He'll bring us the news that a Kansan has just been named this year's FFA American Star in Agribusiness. And later, on Kansas agricultural weather, K-State's Mary Knapp. Here on Agriculture Today.
Have you ever thought about where your food comes from? If you're thinking the grocery store, think again. Facts show that the American farmer feeds more than 129 people.
They are continually increasing and improving their operations. A wide variety of crops and livestock are grown in Kansas as well as the United States, providing food to your dinner plate.
Next time you see a farmer or rancher, thank them. For more information, contact K-State Research and Extension.
A collection of thoughts on the grain market trends and what's influencing those at present. From Dan O'Brien now, our regular Friday guest. He's a grain market economist, as you know, K-State Research and Extension, joining us from his office in Colby, northwest Kansas. Let's take the broad view as we get into the market scene this week, Dan. Looking at the financial and energy markets, they are doing very well, and in the case of the stocks, soaring, of course, with spillover implications for the grain trades.
Yes, when you look at, of course, the stock market running up towards and beyond 24,000 points in terms of the Dow Jones Industrial Index, when you consider what impact that might have on gasoline demand and see the rollover impact that, again, general economic optimism has, and see that on yesterday's markets we closed with light crude oil at 52, almost 53. That's up from, in essence, about $10 from where it was midsummer. So that would be what crude oil prices are. Then you look at gasoline prices. Again, unleaded gas, CME contract trade from a low of again, in the summer when we were in the doldrums of 139, we closed at about 170 or so yesterday. So interesting. From an Aggie's point of view, from an agricultural markets perspective, strong economy, strong gasoline demand puts us into the realm of anticipating that prices for ethanol, profitability of the plants would be supported by a move like this and supporting the base demand for corn. Of course, this happening at the same time that the corn prices are, if not at a harvest bottom, doing a really good imitation of one, at least presently. You know, corn prices are fairly cheap around the country, closer to $3 than $4, that's for sure. So we got ethanol plants with positive prospects for ethanol prices, strong livestock numbers, probably decent demand for co-products with distillers' grains, and cheap corn. So really a pretty good combination for a lot of corn to move through ethanol plants and to help us on their supply-demand balance sheet for that crop here in the U.S.
And in fact, as you note in your summary of the markets this week, there is evidence that ethanol is having a quite favorable pull on feed grains in Kansas via the basis levels.
Yeah, it's kind of shocking in a way. When you look at the national reports, the high price for corn bids at Kansas ethanol plant reported on Thursday, October 26th, at $3.71. The highest price anywhere else in the United States was $3.53 in Indiana, and most other prices running, again, the high end of those ranges running anywhere from $3.11 up to $3.20 or $3.30, well, about $3.26, $3.30, something like that, $3.40. So strong ethanol plant bid for corn here at some of our locations, even on the low end of the range, $3.21, is amongst the best cash prices we see reported around the state. And then you also have our dry distillers grains price range of $130 to $135 per ton for that product. again, the bottom of our price range is the top of the price range anywhere else in the United States. So strong demand for distillers' grains here in the state, and really just similar, identical situation in terms of wet distillers' grains. Even for grain sorghum, our grain sorghum bids here in Kansas, $341 at a basis of just 10 under, and of course there aren't a lot of other states where there are large supplies of grain sorghum going into ethanol plants. But when you look at the bids around the state, most other bids for grain sorghum, the best of which we're seeing in central Kansas, 25, 30 under D's, well, the better bids for grain sorghum and ethanol plants in the state about 10 under. So I guess during a time when we're having a lot of grain coming into elevators and are wondering about the future of prices, it's a positive signal to see that at one segment, at least, of our demand side of the equation for corn and grain sorghum is holding up really pretty well.
Indeed. Still, you point to a few oddities you note again this week, Dan, when you look at local basis relationships. For example, you bring out in your comments this week on the trades the local basis for grain sorghum at certain elevators exceeding corn, while at other delivery points corn is a notch or two above wheat, and especially there in western Kansas.
In central Kansas, grain sorghum basis bids at some key locations running under that for corn on the same days, same communities. You see that especially in the Topeka market. You see that in Salina as well. So what makes me wonder is to see that we've got apparently some pretty good demand for grain sorghum relative to corn in that central Kansas location, and which is more export-oriented, but yet see that pace of exports for grain sorghum, well, this last week, again, really relatively low. It makes me wonder if, although the shipments have been low here at this time, that when you look at the new crop sales, which are running ahead of the pace for the year, that there may be more shipments coming down the line. Again, some set of demand pull factors have to be providing the impetus for pretty shrewd marketing local grain elevators to see profit opportunities and paying better basis for grain sorghum than corn in those locations. I would also say, you look out to the west, and we do now in a number of communities based on the Western Kansas Grain Markets Report from USDA, corn bids above wheat bids. You see that in Dodge City, Garden City, Protection, Sublet, but not in every community out to the west, but a number of them. You got at least 2 or 3 or 4 cent higher corn markets than for wheat. What's so thought-provoking about that is that, this is happening during a time when we're literally in the middle of harvest with lines of trucks lined up outside these elevators, and yet we see really a pretty strong corn basis relative to wheat. It also says that right during the time, I think we'd be normally at the tail end, if not done with wheat seeding in most years, still seeing some going on in those areas. At a time when we're trying to seed wheat on the one hand, finish up fall crop harvest on the next, we've got fall crop bids for corn higher than for wheat. So how may that affect the decision-making processes of farmers as they weigh what to do? Again, will that affect their choice of how many wheat acres to seed in the remaining week or so here of wheat seeding this fall here in western Kansas, especially southwest and south central Kansas?
Well, Dan, because it has been in recent days and weeks of a high profile in agriculture, that is the ongoing renegotiation of the North American Free Trade Agreement, wanted to ask you what this whole scenario truly means or could mean for our grain trades, and particularly when we look at our grain sales track record with Mexico. That market has become utterly important to grain interests in this country, has it not?
Without question, Mexico is a key player in a number of these markets. For corn, we have about 6.9, almost 7 million metric tons of sales to Mexico this year, and the next closest export market that we have is to Japan with 1.8. So by far and away, Mexico is our strongest customer. And when you look around and consider how we were doing relative to last year for these major markets, Japan, Korea, Colombia, Peru, Mexico is the one market where we actually have an increase over the previous year. So important for corn exports. For wheat exports, Mexico in this marketing year is also the number one pace of export sales for this year, about 1.8, almost 1.9 million metric tons of sales so far. And Next closest customer is the Philippines, 1.8, Japan at 1.5, and again, also up this year. So those selling wheat in a tough environment like we have are pretty anxious to not do anything to mess up that sales relationship. For soybeans, Mexico trails China. Of course, everybody trails China. China at about a 12.9 million metric ton sale pace so far in this 17-18 marketing year. Mexico is the number 2 rated customer at 1.3, almost 1.4 million metric tons. So, again, not as predominant as the all-important China market, but still the second highest export customer that we have. So when we worry about what potential changes in NAFTA could do to our trade in different areas, on the ag side, they're our number 1 or number 2 customer in almost all of these major grain areas. And so I think that's the reason that you're seeing skittishness and worry about how any new NAFTA agreement would come out, and again, with a strong desire to not do anything to damage the strong position the U.S. has with Mexico right now in terms of grain heading out of our country into theirs.
Finally, Dan, there seem to be few, if any, glowing sales opportunities for producers holding grain out there right now.
Well, that seems to be our case right now. We have some nickel, dime, quarter, maybe 50% things out there. Again, pretty strong ethanol usage, good solid livestock numbers, wet corn milling holding up pretty well, so that helps us a lot on the feed grain side. Some targeted opportunities on the export side. Really, our exports, whether we have just a so-so average year or a really good year, going to depend on what happens down in Brazil. Again, if they've had some problems, you're already seeing it affect soybean exports. If they go on and have a substandard year, again, down 10, 15, 20%, that would do a lot to really increase U.S. feed grain, soybeans, and even wheat exports heading off into January, February, March, April.
Dan, thanks again. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, Eric. Take care.
He's grain market economist Dan O'Brien, K-State Research and Extension. And you're tuned to Agriculture Today.
Did you eat today? Thank a farmer. A way to get more involved in agriculture is through 4-H and FFA. Through 4-H and FFA, we have been given multiple opportunities to grow as leaders and learn more about agriculture.
You can learn skills related to jobs, public speaking skills, and you get the opportunity to travel around the country and meet new people.
If you want more information about getting more involved in 4-H and FFA, visit them on their websites at kansasffa.org and kansas4h.org.
You're tuned in to Agriculture Today. We've been keeping you informed the last couple of days of the activities and happenings at the 2017 National FFA Convention and the accomplishments of Kansas FFA members there, during which time it's been noted that one of those members in particular is up for perhaps the most prestigious form of FFA recognition. Our former Agriculture Today colleague, DeLoss Jahnke, is in Indianapolis, and he caught up with that individual for this visit. DeLoss?
From the 90th National FFA Convention and Expo in Indianapolis, I'm with Kansas National Officer Candidate Kyler Langvardt. He's a finalist, and we'll know on Saturday if he's one of the new 6 wearing the extra special corduroy blue jackets, the ones that don't have anything on the back except the emblem. It's a pretty special jacket. So first of all, to get to this point, what have you been doing throughout the week, and what was it like to find out that you had advanced to the next level?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting week for sure. Ever since this past Saturday, we've been going through 1 to 2 rounds each day, including a writing prompt, many interviews, what's called a stand and deliver, where you have 5 minutes to present a speech over a topic, as well as a facilitation. And so every day we've had a unique prompt where we've been able to show who we are to a committee in the ways that we could best serve National FFA with our personality traits. And so it's been a blast of a week so far. Monday night is when we figured out the advancement, and I got to call my mentors and all my friends back home in Kansas and tell them the good news. So I hope I get to do the same this upcoming Saturday.
First of all, what are the judges? I'm sure there are people that are watching you all the time so that you have over the course of the week, it's a very consistent grading pool, if you will. Are they positive to you? Are they cold to you? I mean, are they not emotional to you? And, when you come out of there, do you feel like they really like that, or they didn't react at all to that?
Yeah, so the 9 nominating committee members do a really great job of making it feel like it's just a natural situation. They don't wear their emotions on their sleeves, but they definitely will respond to you and make sure that you feel comfortable in whatever room you are in. And so they've been in every room we've been in the last few days since Saturday, but then we've also had opportunities outside of the committee room to meet and have fun. So for example, we got to have a fun committee night where we had dinner together and then just played board games and acted naturally in front of each other and got to build connections with one another. It's very cool. Those 9 nominating committee members come from all over the United States. One actually comes from Kansas as well. So seeing them and hearing their experiences were even rewarding to me to get to know them on a deeper level just past sitting across the table from them.
I was going to ask, there's probably a balance in there between being the person that I think they want to find and also just being myself, to have to guard against trying to be something you're not.
Yeah. Well, it's been great to work with some mentors of mine in Kansas, and the best advice that he's always given me, and I'm sure many of the other candidates heard this as well, it's if you're not yourself, then this process won't go the way you think it will. Being you and being yourself, the best and the worst of yourself, really shows the committee all the ways that you can serve FFA members and the way that you can relate to those members. I think the hardest perception that national officers have to get past is that they're the perfect individuals and that they were selected because they're perfect, but I know in my case that's definitely not true. I have my flaws, I've been working on them, and I also have places that I know I can shine when it comes to serving FFA members. So being me throughout this process, and same with all the other candidates, being ourselves really shows the committee that we have a passion for agriculture, and we're able to work past the situations that we've had in our lives to really make a difference on those national FFA members.
So while you were at Chapman High School and your ag teacher and FFA advisor was Trenton Horn there, at what point did this grab you? Was it in Manhattan State Convention, or at what point did it really get to you of not only do I want things in my local FFA, and Chapman's for so long had a strong ag program, but to really pursue some of these offices?
Yeah, so I grew up on a family operation in Chapman, and you would probably find me inside playing on some sort of technology rather than actually just going outside and being with agriculture. So I'd assumed agriculture was the last thing I was going to get involved in until my 8th grade year, when my advisor, Trenton Horn, took me to a contest for 8th graders, and we were able to identify agricultural products, different parts of the FFA emblem, and by that point, I was really intrigued by what FFA could offer, because that was just a taste of what we got. And it wasn't until I went to my Green Hand Conference, which is a conference for first-year FFA members from around the state of Kansas to come to, and I got to see what were called district officers, state officers, and even national officers interact with members and see the ways that they made them feel important, that I knew that this was something that I really wanted to pursue in my future. I had no idea I could take it to this level. Standing here representing Kansas on a national level is something that was in the wildest dreams of freshman year, Kyler. But seeing the people that I've been able to meet, the ways I've been able to impact them, on a local, on a district, and on a state level so far, makes me hope that, when Saturday comes, I'm able to represent over 650,000 FFA members and make that impact that I saw all the way back in my freshman year.
Some people might have heard Langvardt and heard Chapman and think Langvardt's I know would be in Junction City. It's amazing how far that Chapman school district reaches, almost to 177. So couldn't even imagine how many people, especially those who have raised cattle, not only in Kansas but probably in other states, are familiar with the Langvardt name. JC Livestock Sales for more than 50 years. Great-grandfather Vern. How many years of Howard running the auction, and Grandma Ann making sure the business was in good shape. And so that Langvardt name is in many ways synonymous with agriculture. So what did you learn from the family, whether that was about agriculture or just about conducting yourself or about family, whatever that was?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that you probably would find me inside, not being the ag kid that my siblings were or that my dad and my grandparents were. So it took me that 8th grade year to realize that agriculture was a lot more than what was out my back door. I knew I wanted to stay involved with my family business, but I probably wasn't going to be out back working with the cattle every day or up in the auction block. And so thanks to agriculture education, I really was able to explore what opportunities agriculture had for me. I'm definitely not the traditional agriculture student, even though I have that traditional background. But, now I realize how important to me growing up in the agriculture community was, spending Saturdays in our local sale barn running tickets back and forth from my grandma and to my grandpa up in the auction block. Just makes me see how important that agriculture community is to me. Pursuing a degree at K-State in agriculture communications and journalism, and working with youth in the National FFA organization makes me value that agricultural community every day more and more, and makes me want to ensure that agriculture community has the brand, has the messaging that makes the world trust what we're doing, and makes us able to really make an impact on not just our agriculture community, but the entire world through food production and fiber production.
Meanwhile, on the other side of your family, Grandpa Lyle was the manager of Rock Springs Ranch. To think of the number of kids in 70 years who have gone to 4-H camp or FFA camp or both, that's pretty neat to be, I'm sure, to be part of those kind of memories.
Oh, yeah, it's been extremely cool to, have that agriculture side with my dad's family and then have that education side with my mom's family. Both of my mom's parents were educators in the public school system. Like you mentioned, they ended up going into kind of the private sector with Rock Springs Ranch and getting to impact education through camps and through conferences. And so it kind of fell into place. I never knew that, I could combine that love of agriculture and the love of education that my family values so much into one program. And it really makes me think that, things do fall into place. I've been able to take the passions that my mom uses in classrooms every day as a reading specialist in the Junction City School District, and the passions that my dad has for serving the agriculture community, not only in our sale barns, but with our own family ranch and with his sheep production and all the ways that he impacts agriculture. So combining those two things for me, with National FFA, I was able to find the place where I could use the passions of my family, find who I was, and then continue to make the difference that I see my family members make on the others every day.
So there are 24 finalists, there are 6 officers, 1 per region, and then secretary and president can come from anywhere. Have you ever been to that on Saturday? Because it is such a whirlwind when those names come up, and have you allowed yourself to think about what happens if they call my name and I have to run up there, or do you try to push those things back for now?
So I've been to that experience, and I know firsthand that even the years that I had no idea who the candidates were and never interacted with them, that was one of the most nerve-wracking experiences of my life. So at this point, I'm kind of just preparing myself either way. Luckily, I've got to know the not only other 23 candidates who made the finals with me, but all 41 of us. And I know whatever happens, this organization will be in the best of hands. And so, I'll either be that day being cheering from on stage or being cheering from the audience, cheering some of my best friends on. So, that experience is something that it'll come. I'm preparing for it, but I'm ready to see what steps our organization takes to better the future of agriculture through our members here at the 90th Convention.
Well, congratulations to this point. Best of luck for you for the rest of the week.
Thank you so much.
That report from DeLoss Jahnke, featuring the Kansas nominee for FFA National Officer, Kyler Langvardt from the Chapman FFA. The results of that national election will be revealed tomorrow, and we as well wish Kyler the best of luck in that pursuit. We'll have more from the convention after the break. This is Agriculture Today.
While many people know hunger is an issue in developing countries, it is also a problem in our own backyards. In 2010, 1 in 7 Kansans struggled to put adequate food on the table. 2 K-State research and extension programs are tackling this problem. The Family Nutrition Program and Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program reach thousands of Kansans in more than 70 counties. They learn how to eat healthy with a low budget. For more information about these programs, visit ksre.ksu.edu.
We're back now on this Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network. Eric Atkinson here. Yes, still more from the 90th National FFA Convention, which continues today in Indianapolis. As you know, we've been hearing from the Kansas FFA state reporter from the convention and its activities. Riley Sleichter is joining us one more time from the convention hall. Well, Riley, yesterday was quite another busy day, as one would expect, and we'll start with quite a handful of things that our Kansas FFAers are still trying to achieve here in the way of competition.
Yes, so yesterday was quite a big day for Kansas FFA, as many Kansas FFA members represented our association extremely well. To start us off, our Creed speaker, our Green Hand, our first-year Creed speaker, Kaylin Parks, from the Holton FFA chapter, was able to advance to the semifinal round yesterday afternoon. We'd like to recognize the Chapman FFA chapter, as yesterday they were recognized on stage as one of the top 10 finalists for the Strengthening Agriculture section of the Program of Activities. When you combine the three sections of the program activities together, we get the National Chapter Award application. And this year, the Kansas FFA Association was proud to be represented by 6 FFA chapters, as 6 FFA chapters were recognized in the Gold Division of the National Chapter Award. And these 6 chapters were the Chapman, Riverton, Udall, Ellsworth, Fulton, and the Arkansas City FFA chapters.
So congratulations to all of those. It was a momentous occasion for those chapters. And the big news yesterday, though, was that a Kansan nabbed one of the National Star recognitions. And this is always a huge, huge accomplishment, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is. We are extremely proud of Kansas FFA member Austin Nordyke, as Austin was named the National Star recipient for the Agribusiness area. And Austin is from the Hugoton FFA chapter, and his entrepreneurship supervised agricultural experience is a lawn care business. And just a little bit about Austin's lawn care business. He started it back in his freshman year of high school with some of his father's equipment. And over the 4 years he was in high school, he was able to gross over $100,000 in revenue.
So he's in it for real, isn't he?
He is in it for real, yes. We are very proud of Austin.
We can't overstate the magnitude of that achievement as a national star, in this case in agribusiness. So congratulations in a big way to Austin Nordyke, Hugoton chapter, National FFA star in agribusiness this year. There was business to be done on the floor of the convention yesterday, and Riley, you might tell us what happened there.
Oh, yes. Last night at around 11:30 p.m., the final delegate committee session was wrapped up, and the delegate committee was able to pass 7 reports, or 7 suggestions to the National FFA Association. And these committee reports were for the nature and structure of delegate work, the effective communication between national and chapter organizations, the accommodation for students with special needs, the idea of an agricultural education, CDE, the inclusion of unpaid SAEs, chapter member programs and opportunities, and the Program of Activities Committee report. Also, along with these 7 committee reports that were passed, the delegate body also decided to pass 3 constitutional amendments that were suggested by the National FFA Board, mainly some wording in our Constitution. And we also decided to change the membership date. So active membership now begins August 1st rather than September 1st. So our year is August 1st to July 31st now.
Very good. On the agenda as well today, you say a slew of award winners will be announced.
Oh, yes. Today will be a big day for Kansas FFA, as there are multiple sessions today. And during these sessions, we will find out how some of our finalists do in the career development events.
Very well, Riley. We appreciate you talking with us once again from Indianapolis, and you'll be headed back to Manhattan once the convention concludes tomorrow, and we'll ask you to come by and visit with us on Monday and recap everything for us, including the fate of our National FFA Officer Candidate, Kyler Langvardt.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
That's Riley Sleichter. He originates from the Abilene FFA chapter and currently serving as the state reporter for the Kansas FFA, and highlights once more from the 2017 National FFA Convention, which is into its third day in Indianapolis. It'll conclude once more tomorrow. Now on to this week's Kansas Wheat Scoop with Jordan Hildebrand. Jordan?
It may be approaching winter in Kansas, but the fieldwork on wheat genetics is going full steam for wheat scientist Jesse Poland. Half a world away, Poland, an associate professor of plant pathology at Kansas State University, is learning critical information that will lead to future generations of wheat in Kansas and beyond. Poland said, "Field seasons in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh are offset from the field seasons here in Kansas. We can actually be doing work in India during the winter here, learning things and improving the systems, then bring that back and add another season of innovation and improvement here in Kansas. It greatly increases the speed of innovation and testing in our field research." For the past 3 years, Poland and a team of researchers have worked in 5 countries to test and develop new agricultural technologies that are already improving the way crops are grown. The most promising of these technologies is the use of unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, or drones, to scout agricultural fields for important data. UAVs can do the work in a fraction of the time that it would take humans. Dajit Singh, a Kansas State University graduate student from India who works in Poland's lab, says, "What we are trying to do is to take these UAVs to the breeding fields to efficiently and quickly measure plant traits. Armed with sophisticated multispectral cameras measuring only a few inches, the drones work up and down rows of lush wheat fields, measuring traits such as the plant's height and vegetation index, or greenness of the plant, which is determined by the amount of light it reflects. The process is known as high-throughput phenotyping because it gathers large amounts of information about the plant's traits or phenotype. The use of drones and the quickness of which they collect information helps researchers develop massive data sets. Poland says scientists now have the ability to compare genetic differences between thousands of candidate wheat varieties to make better yielding, more heat-tolerant, and more disease-resistant varieties. For Kansas Wheat, I'm Jordan Hildebrand.
Thanks, Jordan, and this is Agriculture Today. Legal and financial concerns surround the day-to-day management of the agricultural industry. Producers, ag creditors, and USDA agencies rely on Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services. If you've received an adverse decision from the USDA or have an ag credit concern, call today, 800-321-3276, or visit us online, Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services, exploring options, generating solutions. Resuming now on this Agriculture Today, time to catch up on Kansas agricultural weather once again. Over from the Weather Data Library here at K-State, Research and Extension climatologist Mary Knapp. A cold front has moved through Mary, and in its wake, hard freeze evident, not throughout all of Kansas yet, but that's inevitable.
Right. Western Kansas has already enjoyed, if you will, the taste of it. Up in extreme northwestern Kansas at our St. Francis station, they were down to 18 degrees this morning.
Mm-hmm. Actual temperature.
That was actual temperature, not the wind chill. Now, down in southwest Kansas, the temperatures were not quite so cold, but their wind chills were down in the 18-degree range. So very, very cold front. And you can see the difference in the air mass simply by how strong the winds are. And we have some very, very strong winds. We're talking average wind speeds 30 miles an hour with gusts higher than that. So, again, a very noticeable wind pattern in that. And that is bringing a little bit of increased fire danger to the area. The fine fuels like the grasses dry out very, very quickly. Rains that we saw last weekend are already a distant memory in that fuel source, so that fire danger is there. Now, in the eastern part of the state, we're going to get our coldest temperatures tonight into tomorrow morning, and that's going to make its way all the way down into southeastern Kansas, where the forecast calls for temperatures as low as the low 20s in that area. So a hard freeze expected statewide.
It's a good opportunity to remind folks once again of a tool that was introduced on the Mesonet website out of K-State that does, in fact, track in real time freezing temperatures in the state.
Right. That is our freeze monitor, and you can find it. There's a banner on our front page at mesonet.ksu.edu that links to that, and that will show you the latest 5-minute reading and the coldest temperatures up to that point. And then also there's tabs that you can look at how many hours below 32 and how many hours below 24 degrees Fahrenheit. 32 is the threshold that's used because obviously that's the freezing temperature of water. The 24 threshold is used because that's generally going to be cold enough to cause damage to any vegetation that's out there, or for the cold-tolerant crops, it's enough to start putting them into dormancy. So, again, a threshold that's pretty significant at that 24-degree level. 32, you may not see much in that, but when you get down to the 24, you're going to see some impacts from that cold weather.
So once again, temperature readings below freezing and the duration of those readings below that mark all captured on that map. It's at mesonet.ksu.edu, as is a wind chill map. Right?
Right. What you can do to get to the wind chill map is on our menu, which is the 3 bars up on the upper left corner of the page, there's an agricultural weather section, and under that is the wind chill map. The wind chill will give you an indication of just how cold it feels, how quickly that wind is stripping away your self-generated heat. That can be very useful when you're looking at livestock demands, or if you're looking at preparing yourself for being out in that weather. Now, individual stations will show their wind chill right there as you click on it, but if you want to look at overall patterns across the state, that wind chill map will give that to you.
Again, mesonet.ksu.edu for that Mesonet site, which has all of this information and much more. And it's been a dry week, and this system has done nothing to change that, Mary.
Right. The only areas of the state that benefited from the rainfall that ended on the 24th of October were the southeast and east central divisions. Both of those had above normal for the period. They've been behind, and they typically see more moisture as we go into our fall. So it was a welcome addition to their annual totals. They're still behind if you look at the year-to-date, but they've made inroads on that. In the western divisions, the north central and the central divisions, the divisional average was 0. There may have been a stray drop here or there, but not enough to make any measurable amounts in that. That is not as negative as it might have been had we not seen the moisture to start the month. All of those divisions are running above average for the fall season, the September 1st through the October 24th. So again, that was more beneficial in allowing some of the harvesting to get completed, get some of that planting completed, which had been delayed by the wet soil. So we could deal with another dry week out there, but we don't want it to extend too much longer. We need to get another shot of moisture out there to get that winter wheat up and going. So not in the cards for this week. Through the period ending about the 1st of November, the quantitative precip forecast is for nothing, except for, again, that southeastern corner where they may see about 1/4 of an inch. Less than they normally would see in a week, but still something. On the positive note, as we go to the 8 to 14-day outlook, that is tilting towards a wetter than normal pattern, so we may see wet start to November after we get past this next week.
So that could work out very well. Producers could finish up whatever lingering field work they have to do this coming week, and then moisture could roll in. Let's hope so. It's going to be a cold start to November, it appears, though.
Well, it's going to be a cold end to October is probably the better way of putting it, because as we move into midweek next week, temperatures are going to moderate and are going to be much closer to seasonal. We're looking for highs in the 50s, lows in the upper 30s to low 40s, which would be very close to what we would expect at this time of the year. But October is going to go out with a very cold blast.
For the here and now, keep that heavier jacket handy for at least another day or two.
Right. You'll want to have your hats and gloves available, and throw that jacket in the car or truck, because once you get where you're going, you'll feel the breeze.
Mary, thanks as always, and a good weekend to you.
Thanks, Eric.
She joins us every Friday here to visit about the latest on Kansas agricultural weather. Research and Extension climatologist here at K-State, Mary Knapp. Our time's away for today and for the week. Thanks to you for tuning in, and enjoy your weekend. We'll be right back here on Monday this same time. Hope you will as well. Meantime, Eric Atkinson here. This has been Agriculture Today over the K-State Radio Network.